Now time to bring you the part two of our interview segment on the day as we're looking at the Nigerian Stock Exchange proceedings. On the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange was hit with sell-offs mostly for the month of March this year as investors counted losses to the tune of 395 billion naira. This is against the 1.38 trillion naira recorded in the month of February, and despite analyst projections that the full year 2020 earnings from quoted companies will define the market theme for the month under review, stocks continued to depreciate in value. Now, the all-share index, which opened the trading month at 39,799.89 points, as at March the 1st this year, closed at 39,045.13 points, while market capitalization closed the month under review at 20.428 trillion naira. From an opening value of 20.823 trillion naira. Furthermore, the market's year-to-date loss worsened to about 3% as the rising yields and fixed income market weighed heavily on investors' sentiment. Analysts also say the month of April should be a positive outing as long as the government creates a level playing field for investors and tackles macroeconomic issues such as security, political atmosphere, exchange rates, amongst others. Joining me now on this segment to discuss this development, I have via phone to give an in-depth analysis of the trading performance at the Nigerian Stock Exchange as a stockbroker and Chief Operating Officer of Super Commercial Trust Limited, Charles Fakhura, and I also have market editor Ifeanyi Ekop live in the studio. Let's start with Charles Fakhura. Now, at this point in time, looking at the volume of loss that we recorded in the month of March, 395 billion naira loss. Now, the year 2021 started with some level of weak performance compared to the optimism and the anticipation that we had in terms of the earnings we were going to have from quoted companies. How do you see things playing out within the first quarter and now as we are entering into the month of April and going further?
No, I suggest the interview in the studio. I'm trying to listen to the studio after that get that.
Okay, we are still trying to establish connection with Mr. Charles Fakhura, but I'll just start with you, Mr. Ifeanyi Ekop. Now, what do you make of the volume of trading that we are seeing so far? It's quite a weak performance from the highlight and the whole fanfare we had coming with the performance of the Nigerian Stock Exchange looking at the year 2020.
Yes, it was only in January this year that we saw the markets, coming up and boosting from the first week of February all through March.
A downward spiral.
Seriously. The indicators in the larger society weakened investment motives, and investors had some emotions that were not really, satisfied. So if you monitor the larger society, some of the things that we have that affects investment motives very seriously, we have insecurity issue. If you pick the newspapers all through the period, the level of killings, wanton abductions, then assassination attempts, fires, so many things. So if you have your factory located and all of these are attacking, how do you do it? Now, the first speaker on this program today talked about the value of the naira, the weakness of it, the exchange rate. Investors factored all that into it. Inflation issues. So many, if you put all of them in one basket.
That's enough to force the hand of investors.
So much. So it never encouraged investors.
Mr. Ekop, let's just have Mr. Charles Fakhura also join us now. Mr. Fakhura, good to have you on the show at this hour. Now, we're talking about the weak performance we've seen recorded in terms of transactions on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Quite a volume of loss we had there in the month of March. But now, looking at the performance of quoted companies from last year's highs and now what we see, what do you think are the fueling factors? Mr. Ekop says that, well, we have to look at the issue of insecurity, exchange rates, how the naira is faring, and the general mood in terms of macroeconomic indices in the country is not anything to go by. So investors naturally will withdraw. Your thoughts? Hello, Mr. Fakhura, can you hear me? We're still trying to establish connection there with Mr. Charles Fakhura. But Mr. Ekop, going by what you just made mention of, the fact that we're still having insecurity largely driving the hand of investors down, let's talk about the earnings as well that we've seen from quoted companies as well, the performance, the volume of dividends. How is this playing out, really?
The huge losses that we've recorded in the first quarter in the market is on the back, coming that the companies are not earning enough. They are earning power very, very low. And so they also, in turn, reward their shareholders in a very minimal manner. So if you look at the dividends that many of them have proposed, some have even declared, it's not encouraging. If I need to even reel out some of you, look at a company like NECO. NECO is giving 13 kobo, 013. Sterling Bank, 5 kobo dividend. Cadbury, 18 kobo. Name Insurance, 9 kobo. GlaxoSmithKline, 40 kobo dividend for the whole year 2020. There are so many like this. So you now ask yourself, you waited for a whole year, to earn this, on your investment.
Earnings.
So if you now have huge funds, you may not want to put in that basket again. You look for alternative investments.
Mr. Nkoba, here we've re-established connection with Charles Fahura.
Okay, let's reach
Charles, can you hear me? Hello, Charles. Charles, can you hear me? We are talking about the performance of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, the weak outlook we've had so far, characterizing the first quarter of the year. What do you think is playing out really in terms of fundamentals driving this?
The stock market, how it performed, and the market closed the month of March in negative territory. And of course, that was not unexpected, because we have seen the trend. But what you also discovered that we thought that there would have been some improvement in market performance in the month of March, because it was that month more and more of the companies sent in their earnings report. And of course, because of the huge space in the fixed income market, we saw more and more of investors diversify their portfolio and go into the fixed income space, while the equities market was there was a lot of sell-off. Now, we thought with the returns, the earnings that were being sent to the market, that might improve transaction and increase the performance of the market. However, that did not happen, because some of the companies' earnings were not to the satisfaction of this investor. In this month of April, we believe that if this trend continues, we are cautiously optimistic. If the general economy is going to improve, of course, we are likely going to see improvement in the market. We're talking of the security situation all over the country today, and no economy can develop when the security has an issue. So we just believe that the government doing their own part, and of course regulators and the players. My advice to investors will just be, yes, there are challenges here and there, but you must know your objective while you are investing. So you now have to do your own work and invest in companies that are fundamentally sound. That will make your investment to be good for you. So you just have to do your own work, despite the challenges in the economy, despite the challenges. But at the same time, we must give kudos to the companies in the market. Despite the challenges we have seen, their reports not to be so bad. So we believe that with cooperation from everybody, the government, the CBN, regulators, and of course the operators, we might see an improvement. If there is an improvement in the macroeconomic environment, that might impact on the market.
Charles,
Let me opportunity to congratulate the stock exchange. We have finally come to the full implementation of the demutualization exercise.
Exactly.
So the exchanges has now become Nigerian Exchange Group PLC with a group chief executive and of course the subsidiary with their own chief executive has been approved by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So I congratulate the management and staff and of course all the capital market ecosystem for the successful implementation of the demutualization exercise.
This is
Thank
quite
you,
a big
David.
win. Now, Charles, how do you think this, with the current market fundamentals that we have going on, how do you think this would also either encourage or dissuade local participation? We've seen quite an improved participation in terms of our local investors. How much volume do you think we'll see now within this quarter of the year?
Question correctly, you are saying how can we encourage participation of participants in the market? Is that the
Irrespective
question?
of the weak performance that we've seen here.
Yes, for participation, there must be inclusion even in the capital market, not only in the monetary side of it or in the banking system. Also in the capital market, we must have financial inclusion. So the authorities, which I mean the Securities and Exchange Commission, the operators, need to do a lot of awareness campaigns so that more and more people will come into the market and will begin to increase and deepen the capital market for the good and benefit of the economy and for everybody at large.
Mr. Ekop, let's now talk about this good news that we are having from the Nigerian Stock Exchange as well. This is quite a milestone in regards to the performance of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. How do you also see this also turning around the wins for the group?
You know, the waiting was long. It took nearly 2 decades, you know, to wait for demutualization of the Nigerian exchange. Now that it has come, it is a good thing. That means we are also running our exchange the same way it is done, you know, in international markets. There are many of them like that. There were expectations, and we have met in the sense that after, you know, the new companies that have been created from the former exchange, they have areas that they are going to, you know, focus. There are specific areas and units that will go out to, you know, scout and look for new companies that's supposed to come and be listed. So that, if it happens, would probably increase the volume that the space that we have in the market. But all that I really think we need to move the market forward is to improve the general economy and including infrastructure. So long as companies are struggling to meet up with their operations and they cannot satisfy their shareholders, there is a gap somewhere. And then I also think that we have to understand, or CBN must let us understand what it takes to really get the value of the Naira, you know, up, the stability. One question that I keep asking is, those people who operate in the parallel market and then they appear to be sabotaging the efforts of the central bank, can't something be done against them? How can, yes. So for so long, when CBN say, okay, we want to merge, you know, the parallel and then the official rates, you see they stay somewhere and then up their own game. And then we go back to the same situation. Why can't something be done about who are those supplying them the dollars that they use from illegal corridors, you know, to do the business? So these are the things. So otherwise, I don't know how the quoted companies will on their own be able to do when they look at the issue of forest scarcity. And these quoted companies, especially the manufacturing ones, they really need. So what will they do? Except they go to bank and get the forex to be able to, you know, fund their, you know, import and export lines. Then they will not be able to have enough earnings and then satisfy shareholders. And then we still have this type of
Nairas and Koppers we are having in earnings.
Yes.
Mr. Charles Fahora, can I also have your thoughts now looking at sectoral performance? At the end of the day, we have to break down the overall performance into sectors: banking, oil and gas, insurance, the commodities market, how commodities are trading as well. Let's talk about your forecast for the month of April and Q2 for the year 2021 based on the performance we saw last quarter. Mr. Farraga, can you hear me? Okay, Mr. Ikop, let's now talk about the sectorial performance.
The stock market that we see today, we have about 7-8 big companies dominating the entire market. So activities seem to be skewed, in favor of those companies. And if you look at many of them, they have linkages overseas. So when things are so bad in the domestic economy, they have a way of either recalling funds or personnel, from their mother companies. And that is the reason many of them outperform, those ones that are really indigenous. And many people, because they want reward on their investments, they seem to move away, and then they line up, and patronize these 7-8 big companies. Do you understand? But what will really help the economy is, can the spread, be evenly done so that you move from sector to sectors, and then you know that there is capacity, there's ability to earn, from so many of the sectors. Right now, it's not like that. Look at insurance sector. Insurance stock, insurance security right now, if we must say the truth, not appealing to majority of investors. But it is not like that elsewhere. In other countries, Asia, European, American setting, insurance sector is bigger than the banking sector. Many people, have insurance products, insurance services, either in their hand or in their household, before they even have banking services. So we run after the banks, and the banks, even now, they are struggling. See what has happened during the holidays. We are not able to make transactions because they have problems with the telecom companies. They are not so big on their own to even provide this kind of backup services, which is happening in other countries. Do you understand? So we have so many things, and if you talk about how we are going to operate the market, I think that smaller companies, the insurance companies, the trading companies, they will still be struggling so long as the general infrastructure that's supposed to support their operations are not adequately provided. So the government is, at this time challenged to, look more to helping the stock market to grow, because if the stock market, is vibrant, very strong, then the economy too will benefit, from it. I don't think that there is any economy that will, grow very well without a vibrant capital market.
On that note, Mr. Ikop, we'll just round up our conversation. We just want to see a point in time where we see the value and volume of transactions on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange improve. Thank you very much for your time on the show so far. The market is on holiday today. I resume tomorrow. Hopefully, we have positive sentiments coming through.